outside of the funding conversation, because we do need funding, and the truth of the matter is that we don't have all the funding, right? But we can save ourselves. And that's why I think Black businesses matter. We don't have to wait for somebody to create the next business to employ us. We can build those businesses and we can hire from our community and pay those people well. And when we pay them well, that means their kids get a better education. That means their kids get a better meal at night. It also means that they go on to have a better quality of life. And they then do the same thing. Maybe I'm employing the next group of entrepreneurs amongst my team, and I don't even know it. You know what I'm saying? Because they're so close to it. So they see how a business is built, which means they can tell their children how a business is built, which means their children might build those businesses, or maybe one day they will.
Welcome to Black Businesses Matter, a podcast about why Black businesses matter and the benefits of collaborating and advocating for Black businesses to drive impact. Each episode, we will cover legacy, hope, Black joy, funding sources, cultural shifts, equity, and so much more. We will provide inspiration and action while spreading some joy to a thriving community of Black business owners and leading thought leaders. Black Business Matters podcast is produced by the L3 Agency, a culturally sensitive influencer marketing and communications firm in Chicago, where relationships are our currency, passion is our profit maker, and people are our bottom line. I'm Larvetta Lofton, your host and founder of the L3 Agency.
Welcome to another episode of Black Businesses Matter. I am super excited about our next guest. She is a woman. She is out of Chicago. And when I say she is rocking it, she is rocking it. I just love her work ethic. She and her husband, they are a husband-wife team and they are dynamic. The name of the company is CurlMix. They launched CurlMix as a DIY subscription box of natural care products in 2015. But within 3 years, they switched gears to manufacture in Chicago, and the company reached 1 million in annual sales. I just love that this woman is not afraid of pivoting, and I love it. I so love it. They have been featured on Shark Tank, and they declined that offer, that $400,000 deal. But I'm learning that while we decline, it just sets us up to catapult. And so her sales have catapulted to 6 million in annual revenue, and they've earned over 17 million in lifetime sales, all online. So if you've been listening to Black Businesses Matter, we have featured so many folks and shared that have been on Forbes. We've had a Forbes writer. And now, guess what we have? We have a Forbes coveted 30 under 30. Yes, she has been listed as one of those fierce leaders for Forbes. So we believe that many of the businesses that we've shared throughout this time have been featured on Forbes or will be. And that's the reason why we wanted to do this podcast, because we believe that businesses that are featured on here will hit the Forbes list. So we are not only are we striving for that, we've featured some businesses. So I'm excited to bring Kim Lewis, who is the co-founder, because her husband is the other co-founder, which is Tim. So we don't have his husband. We don't have the husband today. We have Kim, and she's going to talk about her place of pivoting and getting to this place in her journey. She's got an incredible story of how she got here. And as I've shared in previous episodes, we're here to make sure that we get to tell stories of thriving Black businesses and why they matter in this space. And she is busting doors in what they've been able to do to crowdfund. And I've watched her grow through this process. She is one of my, I call sister friend entrepreneurs that I get to just glean from. And so welcome, Kim. Welcome to our show. I'm super excited to have you.
Oh my gosh, Larvetta, thank you so much for having me. First of all, I miss you. You are such a joy to talk to, and you always make me smile, always.
Oh, I feel the same way, Kim. I really do. Like when we have our curls, we have our natural curls out and we get to eat in Hyde Park. I mean, it's so much fun. It is, Kim. But now we're so busy now. It seems like life, you know how that goes, Kim, you know, and you are a mother of 2 amazing boys. So that also is another job in itself, right? That's a full-time job too.
Oh my God.
I'm excited that you feel, but I want people to hear your journey because I've heard it. And I think the world should hear about your journey of traveling and how you and Tim got to this place.
Oh man. So before I was an entrepreneur, we used to travel every quarter, travel to another country. We don't do that anymore. We will one day in a more comfortable place. But right now I am in the grind building our business. So you mentioned CurlMix started as a do-it-yourself box back in 2018. So think like Blue Apron, but for hair. And we did it for a couple of years, but we found out that our customers loved our flaxseed gel. And it's funny, you were like, tell me about your pivot. That was one of the first scariest decisions I had to make. Because if you're starting a business and you get to your first 6 figures in revenue, that's like a badge of honor. And you're telling everybody like, I'm at 6 figures, I'm at 6 figures. But I knew that my business wasn't growing the way a subscription box company should grow. So we did like 130,000 the first year, 140,000 the second year. And I was like, man, my best customers, they're starting to unsubscribe because they're stacking up boxes at home. And they're stacking up boxes at home because DIYing your own haircare products is novelty and not necessity. And when I realized that they were still buying ready-made products to use on their hair, I realized that even if I could scale my business to multi-millions, I shouldn't, because this is something that's fun for them to do and not necessary. I like to use the analogy of vitamins versus painkillers. Vitamins are nice to have. You take them every day. But if you have a throbbing headache, or you are going to spend $100, $200, or whatever you need to do to get rid of that throbbing headache. And that is a painkiller. So for me, I was like, how can we be a painkiller? And what was most painful about what we were doing was the flaxseed gel. The flaxseed gel, you have to boil it. You have to take raw flax seeds, boil it, extract the gel. Sometimes you burn yourself. It would go bad after a few days. And then you would put it in your hair. And so we were like, how can we solve the pain of bringing this to market? And so that's what we did. We pivoted, made our flaxseed gel, put it in a bottle, sold it for the same price as our DIY boxes. And we sold hundreds in a matter of hours. And so I was like, this is what we should build the business on. So we literally cut off all of our subscription revenue that we had. That was like $10,000 a month. And we pivoted to our flaxseed gels at the top of the very next year, top of 2018. And that was the year we made $1 million in revenue. So I stopped putting things in the market that I wanted to see in the market. And I started putting things in the market that my customers wanted to see. And that's when I realized that entrepreneurship is truly a journey of service more than anything else.
I'm so glad that you said that you had to stop and not give your clients what you think, right? And I think it's taking the I out of your business. And do you find that today, because you've built a tribe of curl mixers, I really think you have a tribe. And I know every beauty brand has it, but I am a customer and love it. I love the new packaging as well, too. Do you find that it's so in a tribe, you have to lean on your tribe to find out what it wants? And we know that in marketing now it's really about listening to your customers, not telling them what they want. And so is that something that is a strategy for CurlMix and will continue to be that?
Absolutely, Larvetta. From the very beginning, we opened up a Facebook group so that our customers could talk back to us outside of just emailing us. The customer is just emailing you to communicate with you. You're not really getting a full sense of who they are. But if you are seeing their posts in the Facebook group and seeing how they communicate informally and what kind of pictures they post and where they work and who their friends of friends are and how they interact with social media, then you're truly getting to know your customer. And so by having our Facebook group, we allowed them to not only talk to us, but talk to other curl mixers, which then you got to see common threads, right? Like things that they all wanted to see or things that they all hated, or that education was a huge part of our brand. It's funny, Larvetta, we just had a dinner with our top customers. So we have maybe a couple hundred people who've spent over $3,000 with us. And so we invited a few of them to dinner here in Chicago, actually at the VU rooftop. And I was asking about their journeys with CurlMix, and half of them actually threw CurlMix away after the first purchase. And I was like, what? And they were like, yeah, I threw it away because I thought it didn't work. And then I realized that it was just me and I didn't know how to do my hair. So when I got in the Facebook group, I started seeing everybody else using it. And I was like, man, if they can get the results, surely it must have just been me. I'm going to try again. And so these people also went on to buy 70 more orders of CurlMix, and they've become our best customers. And I love them dearly. But I just think it's funny because we realized that education was such a big part of what we needed to do that we created things like CurlMix University, where it's a 15-part video series, 2 to 3 minutes per video, walking them through good hair education. And I say good hair education, not in the sense of good hair versus bad hair, but good education. So it's step by step, the why, demonstrations, graphics, all that, because truly at the end of the day, I'm a servant and I want to listen to my customers.
And I love that. I believe that serving is, which is what we say as a marketing. We're here to serve our customers and our partners and allow for us to support you in that journey. I love that you use that model of taking your top customers. And we, in our world, is about influencers, because those top customers will influence others to try. Not, you didn't ask them to do it, but it's very authentic and they see value in it. And so it's funny, Kim, years ago, I'm a fan of Nordstrom. Like, that's my favorite store. I love it. When I have a bad day, I can just go in there and my day is so much better. But they did something years ago. They took their top, and I guess customers, much like to their, and I don't know if you remember, Nordstrom Beauty Show, and everybody wasn't invited. You had to jump on it fast, and they would sell out, and they would have a show, and then you can book with your favorite brands to learn about their new products. And I thought it was just super novel that this big brand thought enough of their top customers in that particular area and invite them to a special show. And I just thought it was novel. And it's interesting because I wanted to see more brands to really see the value in that. And that was probably, oh my gosh, 10, 11 years ago. So the fact that you see value in that with a brand that is a unique, independent brand, not under a retail giant, I just think that that speaks value. I do. And so are people who, based on kind of these educational tools, how are you able to engage? Are you engaging your top customers to invite people? How do you get invited?
Are you asking how do you get invited to the click? So it's invite only. So you can only get invited once you spent a certain amount of money with us. And for us, it's like $3,000 because we still want it to be exclusive. We don't want everyone to be able to get in it. We want only our top customers. So yeah, so that's called the CurlMix Click.
And it's the CurlMix Click. It's on, and you get invited through the founder, like you, Kim. Do you invite them?
So we have like an email sequence that triggers. So once they hit that level, they're invited. But when they get invited to these dinners that are the CurlMix Click dinners, me and Tim are there to host those dinners. So they get to have one-on-one time with us in a very intimate and upscale setting.
When I tell you that is phenomenal, and I say phenomenal, Kim, because in my career, I've had to work with so many celebrities, and I had the pleasure of working with P. Diddy years ago. And he always said the hottest party is the ones that people cannot get into. And that's how he built his business. And so if there's a line to get in and that people, and so literally years ago, they would just create a line and would create buzz. I mean, this was way before social, but it's still relative today because you've created an opportunity that people want to be part of an exclusive group that I just want to purchase because I want to get the perks and the access. So I just think that when working with him years ago and having us to be very intentional, we're finally seeing that from a social standpoint, and that is serious. So I love it, love it, love it. So tell me, Kim, for the masterclass, is that what you have promoting right now? How can people find out about? You've got something that you're launching that I see that I want to talk a little bit about that.
So you remember how I was saying my customers who first joined a few years ago, they threw away their kit after the first kit, and then they saw all the social proof and our customers who loved it and was like, you know what, maybe it's just me. I'm going to try it again. Well, we did all of the education in our Facebook group. But what we realized is that when people first join, if they join a Facebook group, there's this whole other coded language that they don't even know about. Like there's like the vanilla berry and the mad maple and all these different names for the CurlMix Freshes and things like that, that they almost need a bit more hand holding before getting into our customer group. And so we decided to launch our 21-day masterclass that gives you stunning curls that last. So essentially we take 21 days to master your curls. So there's like someone going live in the group every week to show you how to do your wash and go. There's Q&A, there's Wednesday check-ins, There's also different badges that you get if you're been participatory the whole time. And then at the end of it, there's an initial Zoom and an end Zoom. And so it's essentially like a lot of education and a lot of hands-on stuff that like for free. And so we basically send all of our new customers who buy a sample kit through that process in that 21-day masterclass. And then when they graduate, they get added to the CurlMixer Facebook group where they can then meet with the other CurlMixers and build that community and have that sisterhood.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. Like super cool. I want to talk about the funding. Like you have been I love it, agile. You guys have really created a space where you could be a part of CurlMix growth. And that's part of what you guys are hoping to do with the new brand listener. And I want you to talk a bit about that.
Yeah, Larvetta. So we did something that was pretty much unprecedented. We opened up the chance for our customers to own a piece of the business. And I say ownership, not like in, oh, you feel good, because you supported us and you bought a product. Like, no, you would own shares in the business through regulation crowdfunding. Crowdfunding is essentially, it became legal in 2012 under the Obama administration, where it's called the Jobs Act. And it essentially allows you to invest in pre-IPO companies that are privately held. Whereas before, the only people who could really invest in companies who were pre-IPO through angel investing was like people who were really wealthy, people who basically had maybe $300,000 of annual income between them and their spouses. And which means that if you make $50,000 a year, $70,000 a year, you could never invest in a company at the very early stages. So you couldn't be a part of a Facebook or part of an Uber or part of a Diva Curl or a Dry Bar, period, if you basically weren't very wealthy, which kind of like keeps you out of opportunities. And so crowdfunding or equity crowdfunding specifically eliminates that. And it makes it possible for the average American citizen to be able to invest early in companies. And so what we did is, and you guys know the narrative in Black communities, right? Like we can build these massive businesses and we sell it to a larger strategic organization like a Unilever or a P&G or L'Oreal or a Shiseido, any of those. And our community doesn't necessarily get the benefit of it, right? It's like that people who launched the organization. And I didn't want that to be the same case for my customers. I was like, with every purchase they make, they build up the value of the company. So why don't they get to own a piece of it? And so I launched an equity crowdfunding campaign that raised a bit over $4 million. And we attracted maybe 7,000 investors, half of which are our customers. So over 3,500 customers invested. And the other 3,500 were people who just believe in what we're doing and believe in me and Tim. And it was pretty much groundbreaking. And honestly, one of the decisions I've ever made, but also one of the scariest for sure.
Yeah. And which is why I wanted to ask, like, that was uncomfortable. Like, like what did you do to get comfortable? Because, Kim, when I do research and we've researched, in fact, years ago, I had launched this campaign to really help women access capital. And we did so much research and case studies of how many women were uncomfortable with asking for help, asking for money. But we have figured that out. So for you, what was your process? And of course, your co-founder is your husband. I mean,
Yeah.
And then process different, but I'm curious to know, how did you get there to be comfortable with that space? And not that you like you said, you were nervous, but once you got through, like, what did you do to maintain that?
Oh, that's such a good question, Larvetta, because I was not comfortable. I wasn't, but I did it anyway, right? So I know that you don't get massive companies like an Honest Beauty company or what's another one? Apple, right? Or Nike. You don't get these massive companies without some level of funding, right? And usually it's in the hundreds of millions of dollars of funding. And women get less than 3% of venture capital.
Right.
Women get less than 1% of venture capital, 0.006 to be exact. And so what that means to me is, and also only one Black woman has ever gone public with her company. One out of the thousands of companies traded on the stock market, only one. And her name is Kathy Hughes. She's the founder of Urban One, with like the Quiet Storm Radio and just a lot of different networks. But essentially, there's only one of us. And part of the reason is funding, right? You don't get the money to, and he's like, well, you can bootstrap, people don't bootstrap their ways to an IPO. That's just not typically how that's done. Maybe less than 0.0001% of people do that. So we have to get funding to build massive companies, and we have to build massive companies to change the economic state of our people and our culture. Like, so one, I knew that my vision is bigger than me, that somebody has to kick down the door, right? So if not me, then who? And then two, when it comes to asking for money, if you ask enough and people tell you no enough, eventually you get a little bit inoculated. You're like, try again next time. I've been told no a lot. It's funny. I went on Shark Tank, and we had an offer from Robert for $400,000 and I turned it down. But I had yet to win money in an actual pitch competition. And I pitched in maybe 50 plus competitions. And sometimes I had the most revenue, sometimes I had the least, but my business is not as sexy as like a tech company or a traditional tech company, even if they've made no money. So I never won money in pitch competitions. But if you hear no enough, eventually it doesn't matter. And so the day that we actually launched the crowdfunding campaign, I remember the moment. I was supposed to make my first post at 6 a.m. and I was having heart palpitations. I was terrified because essentially once you make that campaign live, you're dealing with the SEC, right? When you deal with the SEC and you're offering shares to the public, you have to do what you say you're going to do. You can't like roll it back and be like, okay, actually, I'm just playing, like dipping one toe in the water and out. You don't get to do that. And so I was terrified because once I did it, it was all out there. People could see my financials. They're going to ask me questions about my growth. They're going to ask me questions about my customer acquisition costs, my taxes, my this, my that. And it does open up a can of worms. But then I also thought, well, Kim, you want to go public. This is just a test. This is just like going public before you go public, right? So we're not traded on the stock market yet. I hope to be one day, but it was a good trial run. And I was like, oh, now I see what this looks like. Maybe we actually can be a public company one day. And maybe we don't have to get to 100 million in revenue before we do that. And then also it brought tons of press, so many opportunities that I couldn't have ever gotten without being so public, right? And so then I also think about, we're in a different day and time where people expect a certain level of transparency than they ever have before. And so sometimes I think being public with everything makes things easier than being private, because with privacy, there's a lot of speculation. And with public transparency, you get more trust because people are like, well, she's honest. She's transparent. She's out with everything, and which I am. So I feel like it was definitely some huge benefits to actually doing that. And so to wrap it up like that, is that I don't have a problem asking for money anymore because I know that it's needed to get me where I want to go. And if I don't ask, I'll have nothing.
Well, I think that's a whole masterclass, Kim. I'm sorry. I just put you on the spot because I ultimately believe that is part of, while I understand the numbers are low in the way that we get funding, I also don't believe that we ask enough. So as much as I hear it, because, have been in business for 22 years and I've had to pivot several times. But when you go and you walk into the room, you're walking into the room where it's like, maybe I didn't ask enough. Maybe no one gave me that bit of information. So I think what ends up happening is, I think the numbers, if we were to go back, I think the numbers are unfair, because I think if we were to put people through some kind of class to get them comfortable, right, and then let them ask, I think we could see some things differently. That's just me, because I believe that when we were studying for all these women had nice, amazing businesses. But when you paired them with a man, the men could get the funding. Not because when we noticed, it has nothing to do with the business being any better. It was that the man knew the questions to ask. And so I think that that's important. And so, but I do say that what you're doing differently is really helping us own. And ownership is where we want to be at, right? And so I love that you took that on, because when I look at, we actually had a beauty broker in a couple of weeks ago, and just breaking down like how many brands really get into retail. I mean, there's a number of beauty brands, but really get to that threshold is so low, and not knowing how to do that. And so for CurlMix, let's talk about, is there interest in going into a retail giant? Because you see all the brands are doing it, right? Or I'm not going to say all, but a lot of your beauty companies are getting contracts with Target and some of the Walmarts and things like that. Is that a future for CurlMix?
Larvetta, I'll never say never, but it is not in my short-term goals by any means. Most of the big ones have all reached out. And they would love to have us in their stores. We have 130,000 plus customers on the CurlMix side, 20,000 or so on the 4C side, because we have multiple brands. Listener Brands is our portfolio company, and we own multiple brands within that portfolio, but the two top ones are CurlMix and 4C only. And the reason I have not is because my advisors have advised against it, honestly. They say that it will give you credence, but at the end of the day, with the marketing fees and chargebacks, with the marketing fees that they just cost to even just have them send an email on your behalf or post you or whatever that might be. And then it also changes the kind of business that you run. So right now we maintain a direct relationship with our customers through direct to consumer. So if Vanessa orders, we know where she lives. We can email her, message her, send something to her. And when you insert the retail or the middleman, you don't have that information. Essentially, Target becomes my customer, not the person that Target is selling to who's actually buying my product. And then so if you have that kind of business, that means you need to hire a whole team to just support Target, right? You need to hire someone who's going to talk to all the Target team members who are emailing you, their marketing department, their sales department, their compliance and legal department. They're all going to email you. And then you also have to manage those relationships and get the product out to them. And the other thing is that because we are a small business and, we just recently got funding, we haven't scaled up our operations either to be able to handle those massive orders because we manufacture everything here on the west side of Chicago. So there's a couple things. There's like the operational side of it. It's like, would this make us late on our own direct to consumer orders? That's one question. But then two, would I have to reorganize my entire business to even serve Target in the way that they need their inventory? And then three, financially, does this make sense if my margins are so much lower, even though there's volume? So I feel like retail makes sense if you are buying your products from China and you are paying, pennies on the dollar for your products, and someone else is going to ship it and distribute it, and someone else is doing all these things, and you maintain a very small staff that doesn't really do a lot of the work or the manpower to get that product done and out the door, then I think it makes sense. But for the kind of business that I've started to build, retail doesn't quite make sense for us yet. It might be the thing that we do once they're really, really big. But for now, I prefer to maintain that online relationship, that one-to-one relationship with my customers, because I feel like that helps build the brand up even better than kind of spray and pray with retail.
Kim, I love your strategy. I mean, honestly, and when I say control, you do have some control, right? And I think that it's important when you're building, and I say when you're building, not necessarily a baby business, but as you're building and pivoting, when you do that, sometimes there's a trade-off with losing control. And I get it.
Exactly.
And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but I love that you also answered, I'll never say never. Because I think that also allows you to stay flexible as the business grows. There may be an opportunity to be able to do that. So I want to talk through about you have about 30 plus minorities, right? So is that women, African Americans that occupy the CurlMix team? What is that mix made of at CurlMix?
I would say we are technically 100% minority if you consider that it includes women and men, but also like ethnicity. And I would say we're somewhere around maybe 60 to 70% women, maybe higher, actually, might be 80% women. But it's important to me to hire from the community. When my team tells me that they bought a house, for the first time ever, I've had several team members buy homes and me feel amazing inside because it's like they did that with the salary that I helped create and pay, And so that is probably the most rewarding part of my job. It makes me willing to pay taxes here in the United States to be able to do that. Because sometimes, you can contract and you can get your labor from all over, right? But that feeling makes me smile at night. So it just means a lot to me.
No, and Kim, I'm so glad because that's where we are aligned of hiring from the community. I had a good friend yesterday and I said, much like you, when I can hear my employees say, we're about to buy a house, we're purchasing our first car or whatever, it does. And it sends a message because what we know is that African-American women-led minority businesses, and let me speak on that, African-American business are the largest employers of Black people. And so as a unit, we're impactful. And that's where we don't see is the power when you put us all together. It's amazing. And there's thriving businesses that are being formed in it. And then there's legacies that's being formed from those Black businesses. And so I think those are the stories that we don't hear of those that are creating wealth and legacy for their employees who are African Americans. And I say, honestly, there could be a white company that says, hey, I'm going to hire all Black. And I don't have anything wrong with that. But just knowing that you are contributing to that space. I want to ask you, and what do you think now? Like, why do Black businesses matter?
Outside of the funding conversation, because we do need funding, and the truth of the matter is that we don't have all the funding, right? But we can save ourselves. And that's why I think Black businesses matter. We don't have to wait for somebody to create the next business to employ us. We can build those businesses, and we can hire from our community and pay those people well. And then we pay them well. That means their kids get a better education. That means their kids get a better meal at night. It also means that they go on to have a better quality of life. And they then do the same thing. Maybe I'm employing the next group of entrepreneurs amongst my team, and I don't even know it. You know what I'm saying? Because they're so close to it. So they see how a business is built, which means they can tell their children how a business is built, which means their children might build those businesses, or maybe one day they will. I think I'm able to see my impact amongst my team, but I get excited about the next 50 years, the impact of being able to see what we've created working here, and our team being able to see that, and our employees being able to see that, and then how that will impact their future and the decisions that they make. So I think if more of us take that risk, we will move the nation and move the needle for our culture and our people.
I love you said move the nation. And that's so important because you say I'm hiring locally, but I can still move the nation. And I think we have to think of it like this. So I think sometimes when we think of local, we think like, oh, I'm not doing an impact. And I love you said 50 years. It actually brings tears to my eyes because years and years ago worked with Luster, Kim, and they were a first sponsor client of mine years ago. But I used to hear Joy get on calls and talk about the vision of the beauty. I mean, they've been around for years in Chicago and created jobs and paid people well. So like listening to you, I remember being on the opposite end of those meetings and being like, wow, this is so cool on the south side of Chicago. Like I thought it was super cool. But now there's a Kim Lewis with CurlMix that is creating another way. And I think is breaking the online code. I do think that when I see your business, going online, your user experience, all of it is just super cool. Without a store, I feel loved. I feel cared and nurtured in my purchase. And I think that speaks to who you are. And I love it. I love it. And I want people to learn more. So tell the audience where they can find CurlMix, of course, the website, Instagram, Facebook, where they can connect with the brand.
Thank you so much, Darvetta. And if you are interested in connecting with the brand, you can follow us on CurlMix.com or go to CurlMix.com, or you can follow us on YouTube or Instagram. And if you're interested in connecting with me directly, my Instagram is Kim Lewis CEO.
So Kim, let's talk about listener brands. Okay. If you're just tuning in and you're just listening to Kim, she's been talking about CurlMix, but we've got to dive in a little bit on what they are launching as part of their new portfolio of the listener brands. And so, yeah, they are like the P&G of, I think, is it just going to be beauty? Will there be some other things? So tell me about listener brands. Because for me, I'm like, that opens me up. I'm like, is there some brands inside of me that I can be part of listener brands? So that's about listener brands.
Thank you, Larvetta. So what I've learned from e-commerce is that if someone sees your ad and they go to your website and they don't see themselves, they're immediately less likely to purchase, right? So you have to be speaking to a consumer, potentially in a niche, directly. I don't think that this one size fits all, like it's been in retail, works online. It has to feel like it's for me specifically. And so when we launched CurlMix, I saw that, our customer is a Black woman, over 40, who wants to wear the same, who, can't do all the extensions and, can't do all the wigs and the this and that. And so she wants to wear her hair out naturally and celebrate it. But she doesn't want to wear like pigtails or, like the funky bantu knots. So she doesn't want to do all of that. She's like, I want to wear my hair in the wash and go to work, go to my kid's soccer game, go on a date night, go out with my girlfriends, and leave the rest of the hairstyles at the salon. Like she don't want to do all of that. But there's also this, 4C millennial, right? Who would always comment on our ads and basically like, but this isn't 4C hair. Like that was like the number one comment we would get. And I was just like, you know, my customer wants this hairstyle. And once you do it, people think that it's not 4C. So like once you style it in Washington, like, oh, but it's not 4C now. But if you saw it before, like in my natural afro, you would say that my hair was 4C. And so I was like, you know what it is? She's not represented in her fro. And CurlMix is a wash and go brand. So it's like, how can I serve her? Because I know there's a market there, right? Because no one would put 4C on a bottle. Even though everyone in the industry in hair care knows that the 4C hair type converts 9 times more than the others, they still would not put 4C on a bottle. And I was like, you know, and I didn't want to dilute the potential of that brand by putting it on CurlMix and saying, oh, we're catering to all hair types. It's like, nobody wants to hear that. I want to know that you cater to mine. Like that's what I'm interested in. And so I was like, you know, 4C only would be best served on its own website, celebrating all the rich blackness and the kinky textured afros. And it doesn't have to be defined to be beautiful. I wish you could see my hair right now, Larvetta. I'm wearing my very bold afro because I love my afro as much as I love my wash and go.
Wow.
And
I'm like, wow, because I'm saying wow, because the fro, it was so, and my mother used to wear a fro. And one time I just blew my hair out once and I played around and I was like, I want to walk out like this. And I want to walk down the street. I had this whole vibe. I was like, I want to walk down with my sunglasses on Michigan Avenue. And I want the world to know that a fro is still very much, you know, sophisticated and sexy. That doesn't mean, you know, that I can't afford, you know, there's so many misnomers around it. So I'm just like, wow, because I do think the fro sophisticated woman like yourself, she's never been able to walk the streets and get the looks to the level of people seeing her as sophisticated and not seeing her as, oh, she didn't do her hair.
Yeah. And I hate that this concept of like, I'm not done because my hair is in a fro. Like that's not
right. Exactly.
It's this idea that I need to adjust who I am and how I look to be acceptable, which means that Black women are naturally not acceptable. And I'm like, I hate that. I hate that so much, which is one of the reasons I wanted to create 4C only, because I have that duality where like, yeah, I love my wash and goes, but I also love my fro and I will wear it for an interview. I'll wear it, you know what I mean, out as the style. I'll even fluff it out, you know, with my fingers and make it as big as possible, or take the blow dryer and stretch it, you know? And so 4C only, making it its own brand was the best way to celebrate that customer and that Black woman. And so, and it's funny because people will say, well, you could have just launched 4C only under CurlMix. And I was like, you don't understand, you know? And this is why I'm doing it and not somebody else, right? Because I think you have to be a Black woman to understand the nuance and how they're different. And so what I realized is that I'm able to see trends in the market and see places that are not being served. And so that's why I came up with the name Listener Brands. We make brands that listen to underserved markets. And so CurlMix is one, you know, the wash and go consumer, Black woman over 40 is one, the 4C only consumer is one. But I think there are others that I'm actually exploring now. I can't mention what they are because, you know, I don't want to give my IP away. Will not always necessarily be hair, but I will say that, you know, Black women spend 9 times more on beauty than any other ethnicity. So I'm serving the audience that is most underserved and is willing to pay the most. So that's like where I am now, but it doesn't mean that we can't make personal care products for your, you know, your body, your face, your house, or home goods, things like that. We can do that as well. But I don't necessarily want to make like, you know, floor cleaner because the margins on it aren't the best. You know what I'm saying? So we can, but we may not.
So the way that I hear, Kim, and you tell me, like the way that I hear Listener Brands is like, there's this parent company that literally has data and they evaluate data to fit your particular customer. And I think that that's brilliant because you now are opening yourself to being able to, I think, to be able to have that data to help those brands who may not have that. And I think Listener Brands, the name really speaks to where we are growing and how we have to be able to listen to our customers. So I do want to ask this, Kim, you know, if people are listening and if you have a brand that may be in the personal care, is that something that they could reach out to you or send you a message? They've got this brand and they're looking for some portfolio support. Is that something that you're open if people were to reach out to you for that? They have a beauty brand?
If people are interested in like me acquiring their brand, sure, definitely reach out.
I love it. That's what I wanted you to say, Kim.
Yes, Loretta, absolutely. I'm hoping to raise a large round at some point next year. And that money will likely be for acquisitions. And I would love to buy some Black-owned brands in markets that we don't already kind of like win in. Absolutely.
If you're listening, we're talking about CurlMix ownership, acquisition. Like Kim is not here to talk just about, she's talking about the brand CurlMix, but how there is a plan for acquisition. And so making sure that there are, succession plans in place to figure that out and to know that there is a Black woman out of Chicago who is creating jobs for minorities in the city of Chicago, who is also open to acquiring other brands. I love it. I love it. That's why you're on the Forbes list. That's why. I'm just saying, that's why you're there. I'm like, oh, okay, this is what we do at Black Businesses Matter. So I just want to say, I love you and appreciate you for who you are. And there's my favorite question that I want to ask you, because we ask every guest this, is what brings you joy?
Ooh, so many things. This is going to sound superficial, but my Black coffee in the morning.
Hey, we don't judge over here, Kim. So there's no superficiality over here. Okay. Your Black coffee. If that brings you joy, then
yes. Well, my Black coffee, my Black husband, my Black children, they bring me joy. My team, the impact that we have, and my customers. Those things bring me joy.
I love that you use the Black coffee, because people need to hear that sometimes it is the simple things, the simple joys that really get us to continue to advance. I just want to say to our listeners, if you are joining us, please check out Kim Lewis at CurlMix.com. CurlMix is on Instagram. On Facebook, there is also a Facebook group. I wanted to make sure that I got that right, Kim. There is a masterclass sign up. Did you mention that? I know we have it in the notes. So I want to make sure that you have an opportunity to share what that masterclass is.
Yep. If you guys go to CurlMix.com and you click on masterclass, you'll be taken to our 21-day masterclass. So you can put your email in and sign up. And then you'll go in with a cohort. After you buy a sample of CurlMix, you'll go with your cohort and figure out how to master your curls in 21 days.
It's awesome. The one thing that I do want to add, I know we've got a few minutes, but I do want to ask this because I just think you are super dope and such a rock star and people can really learn. Are there like 3 tips that you would give small business owners or business owners in general that has worked for you that you would like to share?
Whenever I have a problem in the business, of course, counseling and getting an advisor, those things are really, really, really important. But I read a book whenever I am dealing with a specific problem and I know that that's my issue. So for example, if I wanted to figure out how to get more subscriptions in my business, I would read the book Automatic Customer, right? If I wanted to figure out how to differentiate my business and I feel like I was just like everybody else, I would read Positioning by Jack Trout. If I wanted to learn how to rebrand my business, I would read Building the Brand or Designing the Brand. I think it's like a textbook that you can get. You can get all these books on Amazon. That's something I've always done, and it's really helped us move the needle very quickly in our business. So I would say whenever you have a problem, read a book. Secondly, I joined a mastermind, Traffic, Sales, and Profit with Lamar Tyler. And that was one of the things that I did that helped me get to my first $1 million in revenue, because I had tons of questions, didn't even know the books to read really, and didn't know how to like take the next step. And I felt like, I'm trying to, I might be in a forest, right? I'm trying to go north, but I'm just running. And little do I know I'm running south, right? I'm running backwards when I really should be going forward. But I didn't really know those things. And so joining a community of other Black entrepreneurs really, really helped me. The third thing I would say is find a way for your customers to talk back to you. Early on, small businesses don't like to hear the feedback because it's often negative, right? Because you're finding out things that you do wrong. But that is such a blessing in disguise. It helps you get better. And the better you get, the more money you'll make and the bigger your business will be. So don't be afraid to talk to your customers.
Those are some really great points. Kim, this was a pleasure. I could sit with you for hours because I just love the way you think. And I say this, there's not, a whole lot of people who can pivot and be confident in their pivot and do it and it works. And I struggled with that in the early part of my career. I used to feel bad about it. So just hearing you be so confident is inspirational for me. And I love these interviews because I get to learn so much. And I'm so glad that I get to do this because I get to listen and learn. So thank you so much for being a guest. It took us a while. You were sick I think the last time we had it, you got sick. So you are well and excited about everything that's to come with the listener brands. If there's, and it's the listener brands on CurlMix.com, information about that.
You can go to listenerbrands.com. It's very basic. It's just going to have links to CurlMix, unfortunately, only.
All right, but that's okay. I just want people to know more about how you're expanding the business and how there's acquisitions in play. So on my side, I'm thinking of people that I can connect you to for that opportunity because I think that you will be a trailblazer. This is one woman, if you're listening, this is one woman you need to continue to keep in contact with her because while she's on Black Businesses Matter, she will be well known as she continues to do what she does. I've watched her grow in this business and I've been able to sit on the sidelines and go to lunch with her. So I'm super excited. Thank you so much, Kim, for being a guest of Black Businesses Matter. I'm so excited that you were with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Larvetta. Truly.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you so much for listening to another episode of Black Businesses Matter. If you like this episode, please share a comment, share with your friends. And if you want to learn more about who we are, feel free to go to our website at the3agency.com. We also have merch. If you want to get merch that speaks to Black Businesses Matter and you want to walk into that building or walk with your family with your Black Businesses Matter merchandise, we have sweatshirts, we have t-shirts, we have mugs. So again, we thank you for listening to another episode of Black Businesses Matter.
Thank you for joining us this week on Black Businesses Matter podcast. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen so you will never miss a show. You can also follow us on social media at the L3 Agency and at Larvetta Speaks. If you love the show, leave a rating so that we can continue to bring you impactful episodes. You can also take the pledge and order our merch at our website at thell3agency.com. THEL3agency.com. Thanks for listening and see you next week.